Okay, welcome everybody. This is Paul from Inside PA Training, and welcome. I'm just going to do a little brief video today, next in our series on the Physician Assistant School narrative, which is just another word for the essay that's part of the PA school application process. And if you've watched my previous videos, you know that we consider the essay to be very important, in fact, crucial. It is a chance for you to do a number of important things, not the least of which is to separate yourself from the rest of the crowd. So first, today though, we're going to talk about what you actually write about. It's a tough question. People come to the website all the time and they want to know, how do I know what to write about? Well, obviously, CASPA makes it very easy. The narrative instructions that they give you are really simple, right? In the space provided, write a brief statement expressing your motivation or desire to become a physician assistant. That's what it says. It's always the same every year, some slight variation on that. They want to know what your motivation is to become a PA. And the other requirement is that you do it with a maximum length of 5,000 characters. And just to be sure you understand that 5,000 characters includes, spaces, punctuation, and formatting. After 5,000 characters, nothing else that you write is included in your narrative. So it sounds easy. Um, just write down why you want to be a PA. That's what they want to know. That's what you're going to give them, right? Well, no. It's not easy. And if there's one message I want you to take away from this video today, it is you really shouldn't answer this question, at least the way that it's asked. If they just wanted a list, then everybody would just say, well, I want to be a PA because I want to help people, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. That may be true. That's exceptionally boring, and that's not what they're asking for, believe it or not. They're not going to tell you exactly what they're asking for, but thankfully, you're listening to this video and you read articles on the blog. You can see Inside PA Training there up at the top. We're going to tell you what they're looking for. Basically, strong essays have a couple of things in common, and yours should too, at least if you want to become accepted, which is obviously why you're writing it. First of all, they do answer the question, why do you want to become a PA? But that is not the only question, and that's why I implore you not to answer the question that way. The question they're asking you is actually quite a bit deeper. They want to know about you, and so good essays, you will learn from this, are personal in some way or another. And by personal, I don't mean that you share necessarily embarrassing things or your inner workings, although some of that might be really helpful. The main thing is your essay needs to have a flavor of your personality embedded in it, or they're going to lose interest and they're not going to see you as the person you are. So that's important. They need to be personal. Secondly, they need to get them familiar with who you are, and this is the part they don't share with you. They want you to explain your motivation for becoming a PA, but they really want you to do it in such a way that they know who you are. They become familiar with you as a person. And if you think about it, it makes sense. They're reading a lot of these papers, these two-dimensional essays about people, and they're trying in their minds to imagine you as a real, living, thinking, breathing person so they can decide, are you a good candidate for their program or not? Well, your essay, your narrative is your opportunity to make yourself come alive as a living, breathing, three-dimensional applicant and not this little paper version of you that's really easy to throw on another pile, the do not interview or not a good candidate pile. Finally, good essays, strong essays, get them curious. And this curious has to do with the primary goal of your application essay is to get you an interview. You want to make them curious about who you are so that they will want to invite you for that interview. You can get into PA school without necessarily perfect grades, without lots of healthcare experience. Those things definitely help, but you can't get into PA school without an interview. So, how do you accomplish these things? How do you make your narrative personal and answering that question of why you want to become a PA, and doing so in a way that makes them curious? Well, there are a couple things that you can do, but my primary advice for you is really simple, and that is to share experiences. You need to, in your essay, talk about things that you've done in your life, where you have been, and what you have accomplished, and to do so in a way that's personal. And that ends up being actually not nearly as hard. If I told you I want you to write a personal essay about why you want to become a PA, that might be a little more complicated in your mind, I would think, than if I said, I want you to write a personal essay about an experience you had that changed your life. Wow, suddenly you probably have pages and pages that you could write. So what experiences do you share? This is going to be really crucial. There's certainly things that you could share that would be less than helpful, but the primary experiences, the ones that are good to share, have a few things in common. Uh, Jobs, right off the bat, makes sense. If you've had a job as a paramedic, boy, you better write about that. If you've worked as a medical assistant, or if you've worked in an AIDS clinic, or if you have, um, been an X-ray tech, for example, those are important jobs, and I'm sure you learned some things in those experiences that made you want to become a PA. So I think those are totally relevant. Travel. Something about travel really makes people take stock of their lives, and it gets them in touch with who they are. So I think if you've had any really potent travel experiences, I would share them. Um, Definitely fertile ground there. Any kind of service that you've done, any kind of volunteering work that you've done, if you've volunteered in an emergency room, if you've volunteered for Rock Med, um, you can Google that one if you don't know what Rock Med is. If you have um, worked for a nonprofit that did counseling, okay, those are all totally relevant. Next are formative experiences, and just to explain this one, formative experiences are experiences you've had that were really important in helping to shape who you are as a person. And, for example, a couple months ago, Nelson Mandela passed away. If you happen to have the good fortune to have met Nelson Mandela at, say, a youth conference, and he really made an impression on you, that would be a very relevant thing to share in your essay. And if you can find a way to relate that to why you want to become a PA, all the better. Formative experiences can also be things that, happened with family, something, your wise old grandmother said to you, whatever, you get the picture. Health stories. Now, health stories can be about a family member. I've read a fair number of essays that were by people who had a family member who had cystic fibrosis or was, had a disability, maybe was paraplegic or quadriplegic. I have a good friend who has siblings who are deaf and schizophrenic, and he wrote about those. Those experiences in health were a big factor in this person wanting to become a PA. If you've read if you've watched our video with Sundance, interviewing Sundance, who was in my PA school class, good buddy of mine, you'll know that one of the things that motivated her to become a PA was that she was building a house with her husband, and she accidentally, with a table saw, cut off the tips of two of her fingers, the top joint or two. And it was a horrible experience for her, obviously. And what came of it was she said, I met surgeons, I met primary care doctors, I had physical therapy, I had rehabilitation. And through all that, I got a real potent exposure to the medical community, and I realized, wow, medicine really might be the thing for me. So if you have a health story about yourself or a family member that you feel comfortable sharing, that would probably be very relevant to your essay. Now, what I want to ask you to do at this point, we're early in the process. We've only talked about the importance of the essay, and now we've talked a little bit about what types of things you talk about in the essay. The first step, you can get started right now, is to make a list. And that list is going to have your life experiences on it. Now, this is a place where a lot of people get stuck. They say, well, I really haven't done anything that interesting in my life. I grew up, I went to middle school, I went to high school, I went to college, and here I am. Well, no, you have. You may need to get a little bit creative. You may need to search your mind for experiences you've had that were important in making you who you are, but I guarantee you've had them. So at this point, what I'm going to ask you to do is make a list, and don't edit the list. Don't pare it down. Don't say, no, that's not a good one to share. Just put everything on there. This is kind of like the brainstorming technique where you basically write everything down, and you let your brain explore all kinds of possibilities rather than nixing any of them, so that you don't take out something that actually, if you were creative about it, could be really helpful. From that list, we're going to pare it down to the 2 to 3 experiences that were the most relevant to who you are and to your becoming a PA, and we're going to use that. And we'll talk about that in a future video. Now, if you need more resources for creating your essay, you have them, plenty of them here, more than you realize. You see our web address up at the top there. In blue, it's mypatraining.com. You can also find us at insidepatraining.com. But the first resource I have for you is part of our forum, which is attached to the website. Our forum is free. You go to mypatraining.com/forum, and in there you'll find all kinds of discussions about the profession, about becoming a PA, and you'll see one thread, one topic called Physician Assistant Personal Statements. And if you click on that, you have a really cool opportunity. What you can do is, if you do your part for the community, you get to lean on the community a little bit and get their assistance. So what's involved, briefly, you read about this if you're going to do it in more detail. But there's a post where it'll show you how to do it. And basically what you do, you're going to review 2 other people's essays and leave them helpful feedback. And after doing that, if you want to leave your essay, other people can leave you feedback on it as well. So that's a nice way to get some suggestions. I like this. This I might consider changing. Have you thought about doing this? Secondly, Crafting a Winning PA School Application Essay, a step-by-step guide to tipping the odds in your favor. This is our ebook. It is 50, just a little bit more than 50 pages of, I think, really excellent ebook on how to write an essay. It takes you through the kinds of things we're talking about right now and in some more detail. It's got a lot of examples. It has sample essays. It's selling well, and I think people have really appreciated it. I've gotten very good feedback. I've had a number of people write me and say, hey, I just got into my first choice PA school, and I think a lot of it was because I had a really, knock 'em dead essay thanks to your book. So I'll toot my own horn there. We've worked really hard on the book, and I think it's paid off. So that is available on the website. Now finally, the nuclear option. If you really need someone to sit with you and talk directly one-on-one with you about what you've written or what you're going to write, you can get that. We do PA school essay coaching, and basically this is where we can either help you in the planning and construction of your essay, or we can read what you already have and give you very specific feedback on it. And that can be in terms of syntax and spelling and structure, but it can also be ideas, what you communicate and how it comes across. So we'll give you all kinds of, not just I don't like this, we'll give you, I don't like this, have you considered doing it this way? We'll give you different options. So this is a way to really get some nice feedback about how your essay could read, and hopefully in the end make it your essay, but a better version of your essay. There's nothing plagiarism about it. We give you the ultimate decision in the end, what you write, but I like to think that with our feedback, your essay can be even more impactful and more powerful than it would otherwise have been. So I hope this has been helpful. Tune in for our next video. We'll talk a little bit about where you're going to go with that list, and do check out those resources. Thanks.